Hi everyone, it's been a little while since I did a video. Most of these things have been getting in the way of the hobby. This summer there's been the World Cup, there's been weddings and birthdays and all sorts I've been going to. But I have been getting on with a couple of projects that I've had in mind for a while. As you can see here, there's a couple of dioramas I finished recently. Now, we'll start with the first one. So, this one here, as you can see, this is Gimli from the Lord of the Rings. This model was actually made by Games Workshop a number of years ago. It's from the scene where Gimli and Legolas are bickering over who's killed the most Uruk Hai after the battle at Helm's Deep. So this piece was made mostly as, I guess, a display piece rather than a game piece. It has no use in the game at all. So I thought what I'd do is I'd try and create a little bit of a diorama around him. So as you can see here, you got Gimli with his pipe, his axe embedded in the nervous system of one of these poor Uruk Hai. Then surrounding him you've got a dead elf. Now this actually comes from the Rivendell Knights box set. So whilst it's a Hobbit era elf, so the helmet's slightly different from those that came to help at Helm's Deep in the films, because of course it didn't happen in the books. Those being elves from Lothlorien, and these being elves from Rivendell. I don't really care because it's a dead elf, you can tell it's a dead elf. So that's quite a nice effective piece on there. And you'll see in a minute the other diorama I've done does also have one of these on as well. And then here I press moulded this from the base of a Games Workshop Mumuk. So this is just a rider of Rohan who's normally forms part of the base, but I press moulded it, cast one out of green stuff, and I've used it on the base here. The wall is not meant to be the deeping wall, obviously it's not thick enough for it. It's just a couple of pieces of foam that I had left laying around, glued in place with some hot glue and then dry brushed. Actually didn't take that much effort to paint at all. It took the paint. Well, that's not good, is it? It took the paint really well. I do need to varnish these actually. I know you can get some plinths from eBay, so I might look at getting a plinth as well to sit them on. So that's the first one. Second up, I'm actually. So this is, I think this is 100mm, this wooden MDF base. And for this one I've used two, because what I've done is I've recessed it. So I had to cut this out by hand using a coping saw, which was a bit of a pain in the arse, but that's simply because I don't have a hole saw big enough and I'm not spending £8, £9, whatever it was on the ones I saw in B&Q. So here you go, obviously the Dark Lord Sauron. You can see, I'll take him out. The ring, very easy to paint this. I mean, I almost put more effort in than I probably needed to. I picked out some of the sort of extra highlights, but really all it is a dry brush. Probably could have gone a bit lighter on the highlight for the cloak, but I didn't want to lose that sort of like matte black look to it, simply because it's not. Like, sometimes when you're highlighting black, it can go from black to grey, or black to a very dark blue, and of course this is meant to be black because it is Sauron. You've then got, as with the previous, another dead elf, again from the same set. Then you've got these two, Isildur and, let's focus that, Elendil. So Elendil, you can see there, dead on the floor. It's the High King of Gondor. Very nice to paint actually, surprisingly detailed for a corpse. A lot of nice detail you can see on the face and on the helmet. And then you've got the famous Isildur before he gets a ring, so at this point he's not a bit of a he's not a douche at this point. Will shortly become one once he cuts the ring off, but again, nice detail on the face. Great models. I mean, this came out with the original set. back in 2001, so they're getting on a bit now. They're very nicely sculpted. But so yeah, both quite simple, both nice to do, and both quite good practice for some other projects I've got in mind. I've also got a Gandalf on cart, which I want to do. I'd like to do a similar sort of thing as to what I've done here, and recess it in maybe a larger base, because I think he's on a 60mm base, so he's on a base that kind of size. So it would take up quite a lot if I was to do it. Recess it and then have it so it looks like he's going through sort of like the sunken lane which leads to Hobbiton. That's one idea anyway. The other I'd like to do, and the whole reason I actually press moulded these to begin with, I've got the Final Fate of the Witch King set, which is another Games Workshop set depicting the battle between Eowyn and the Witch King. And I want to do a similar thing where I recess them so I can use the pieces in game, but then I can also put them all together and they form a diorama. So this was good practice for that, and as was the press mould, which again I have done before because there's one on my Isengard troll base. But yeah, it's all a bit of bit to think about, and next project, it's always like that with this hobby. But thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.